Kumusta kayong lahat? So, I'm sure nabusog kayo at ready na kayo sa ating mga next lectures and speakers. But before that, guys, ayan, busog na busog po, sabi ni Vera Janel. Oh, busog na busog. Okay. So, but before that, guys, mag-bonding muna tayo ng konti. Okay? Mag-bonding. Gusto ko mas makilala yung mga participants natin. Okay? Since gusto ko malaman sa mga participants natin, since nagsimula yung pandemic, ano yung inyong mga naging quarantines? So, ano yung mga sinimulan yung gawin? Or ano yung mga mas na-improve nyong gawin, tinuloy nyong gawin na dati busy kayo nung pre-pandemic, pero ngayon, mas marami kayong nailagay na oras, kaya mas gumagaling kayo dito sa bagay na to. Sabi ni Dariel Lampa, magmahal ulit. Oh, yun ang yung quarantines. Okay, yan. You can say cooking. Maraming mga nag-improve sa cooking nila. At na-discover na may talent pala sa baking. Ano pa ba? Naging into K-pop. K-pop. Ako personally, medyo ako ngayon. Into K-pop ako ngayon. Sinastan ko ang BTS. Yan, okay? Meron din naging into fitness. Diba? Nag-invest sa mga bike, sa mga gym equipment. Ayan, magluto, sabi ni Kalabit Daniel. Nagluluto siya. Planting, ang dami palang plantita dito. Si Annabelle Corpus, hello. Okay, una po sa lahat yung adjustments. Okay, sa learnings. Ayan, so syempre online tayo ngayon, no? Maraming nag-adjust sa learnings. Webinars and plantings, that's good. Okay, at least, di ba? Natututo pa rin tayo kahit nasa bahay tayo. Online business. Okay, share mo naman yan. Anong online business yan? Sabi ni Dave, mag-coding. Wow, nag-coding siya ngayon. Rowena, mahalin ang maling tao. Wow, yun ang natutunan. Yun ang quarantine ngayon ni Rowena. Makipag-quarantine. Oh, quarantine. Uso pala yun. Okay, uso pala. Okay, ano pa? From workout and cycling from Yivo. Workout and cycling, same. I'm into workout also and biking, yeah, cycling. Okay. Ano pa? Ayan, digital arts. Yes, glow up. Wow, nag-glow up si Jamil. Glow up, charot. Sabi niya ganun. Seminars, webinars, K-drama. Yes, alright, K-drama. Ano pa? From Rojas City. Hello, hi. Kamusta? At saka kamusta palang weather dyan sa inyong location? Kasi ngayon dito sa Quezon City, medyo maulan kami. So I hope you're all safe kung nasan man kayo. Good afternoon. Anime. Yes, marami rin naging into anime ngayon. Video editing, Christian. Si Marge into anime. Ayan, medyo makulimlim, sabi ni Criselda sa place nila ngayon, sa location niya ngayon. Okay, ingat po tayo. Ayan. Good afternoon po from PUP Calauan, si Mika. Good afternoon from Joe. PUP, ayan, St. Anne College, Lucena. Hello. Shout out sa La Verdad Christian College, Apali, teachers and students. Hello, everyone. Okay, so please continue to post your thoughts or your pictures while you're tuning in here in y4it. Please do post them on any social media, actually Facebook, Twitter, but mas active tayo sa Twitter, and also Instagram. You can also tag me on Instagram at Nick Cardenas, okay? Baka nag-wonder kayo bakit nagpalit yung pangalan ko, no? Monique Cardenas. So kanina ang na-capture ni Zoom ay yung first name ko, but my full name is Claire Monique, so okay lang yun. But mas ginagamit ko si Monique Cardenas. So hello everyone, okay? Ayan, good afternoon po. Shout out ACT1 lang La Verdad. Ang daming mga taga La Verdad. Very active. Hello, good afternoon. Alright, okay. So I see. Thank you sa mga active sa ating chat. Okay. I think guys, you're all ready for the next part of our program. I know you can't wait for the next set of lectures and discussions, so allow us to present our first speaker this afternoon. Right, our first speaker as VP of Corporate Development and Innovation at Smart ELDT, as one of the youngest executives in the Philippines during his time. He was also awarded by the President of the Philippines as one of the 10 outstanding young men and women of the country for his contributions to Philippine innovation technology. Today, besides being a co-founder for Plentina, an AI and fintech startup headquartered at Silicon Valley, He's also an adjunct faculty for the Asian Institute of Management on the topics of innovation and digital transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Earl Valencia.
Hello, hello. Yes, hi, good afternoon. Kumusta po lahat kayo? I'm glad that I'm here with you. I've spoken y4it before, but syempre it's the pre-pandemic version. So I'm glad that I met with you. So let me pull up my, um, let's see, desktop muna to. Sorry about this. Ayun, let's see, present. Yan. Okay, good. Yeah, so at least after lunch, I was thinking of what I wanted to tell you, specifically on the startup journey. But I also thought about that. When I was a student, I was in UP. Um, what I would love to hear from the speakers, especially in a technology conference. And I thought that maybe I'll talk about the startup journey, but also some lessons I learned generally in my career, being in the corporate world, being in a startup world, being in the investment world, right? Again, I guess Monique kind of mentioned generally my background. I grew up in Manila most of my life. I went to UP, and then at some point I wanted to become an aerospace engineer, astronaut. So I was an aerospace engineer for a couple of years, and ended up going to the business side of technology. So I worked in Cisco, VMware, GMC, so a lot of the kind of the tech infrastructure companies in the US, and then went back to the Philippines to lead innovation for Smart. And now I'm a co-founder of a fintech called Plantina, not Plantita, right? Or whatnot, which is sometimes the customer service emails us and calls us Plantito or Plantita, right? So yeah, so really today is really about what are some lessons I wanted to impart, I guess, into you to really accelerate you as you build up your technology careers in the future, right? So just give a background again, what is Plantina, right? So the origin is plenty, na, right? So plenty na. We provide the buy now, pay later app, so you can access your most loved brands on credit, even without the credit card. So basically, you can buy now and pay later, and even without the credit card. So, Plantina, in a nutshell, we're one of the top Filipino-led startups in the Philippines. We're operations nationwide. We launched last year. We have more than 1,000 downloads, and we've gotten investments from venture capital funds, about $3.5 million or so since we started. And what does buy now pay later mean for you? So feel free to go to the Google Play Store and explore Pentina. Again, it's a homegrown Filipino startup for students and young professionals, where we partner with your love brands. Like we just launched 2 days ago with McDonald's, so you can buy your you know um, burger, McDo, and spaghetti meal now, and then pay 14 days later. You can make smart load now, pay later. We partner with Lazada, and then obviously if you also have National Bookstore, we can buy school supplies now and pay later, right? So 14, 30, 60, 90 days later. So hopefully that will give you better kind of possibilities on the payments space. So we're a fintech company for that. So yeah, I think those are the general thoughts of Cantina. So as I reflected on both my startup journey and just generally my career, I thought about three main questions, right? And for all of you, especially in your early technology career, something to reflect on. Um, what when actually maybe at graduation speech, maybe some of you, maybe a lot of you will be invited to be a speaker in Y4IT. I don't know, maybe 10 years from now, 20 years from now, right? How will Monique introduce you, right? And always think about that because you always want to project where you want to be in the future and how you want to be introduced, right? So that's very important so that you know where you're headed as a career, right? So if you want to really be known as a really good, let's say, infrastructure, tech infrastructure person, maybe it's about you got a Cisco certification, or Google Cloud certification, whatnot, right? So what are the things you want to do? Maybe you got a PhD, right? If you want to be a professor, right? So all these things, something that you would think about. Another thing that you have to think about is, what matters to you, and why, right? So is it is it building cool technology? That's what matters to you, right? Is it having a stable job? Is it what matters to you, right? Building a company like a startup, is it what matters to you? So you have to just think of what are those answers to those questions, and yeah, and answer this question. Right? This happened to me, right? What would you do if you um, you know what would you do if you would do really if someone actually funded your dream? So this happened to me 10 years ago when I was 27 years old. I ended up in vacation in the Philippines. I'm actually calling from New York now, but I was in vacation in the Philippines. I ended up meeting with my former boss, but at the time I really wasn't there. So I met with MVP on a whim, and he just asked me this question: What would I would if I gave you money to invest in your idea? What would you do? And I had this thought of maybe at some point we'll build the Silicon Valley of the Philippines. And yeah, after that pitch, he ended up giving me $12 million to start Idea Space, which is a startup accelerator that's still actually very active today. And also Kubo, which is the National Innovation Center with the government. So you have to think of yourself. I mean, someone asked you today, maybe 5 years from now, if you know, someone wanted to fund your dream, what would that dream be, right? Because you never know what would happen. So I have after these questions, I have kind of 5 challenges for all of you listening right now to something reflect on, right? Um, and again, it's very somewhat meta, maybe like a reflective mode. What happened in the pandemic, I kind of thought about life and all that. So for all of you, think about this too, because this relates to building a startup, right? Because you have to know yourself before you build your startup, or else it becomes just chasing the market, right? So you have to know inside of you what actually is important. So number one challenge is what is success, right? How will you measure success later on? Is it money, physical health, mental health, financial freedom, right? Yun nga what does living your best life mean for you, for yourself? No, and no one else can define it but you, right? So for me, it was to build something for the Philippines, right? So I built Idea Space for the Philippines 10 years ago, and now building this Ventina, like a fintech startup for the Philippines, so that all of you, even without a credit card, can buy on credit to your favorite brands, right? And hopefully in the future, more financial services. So that was my dream, and I'm lucky that we're doing that, right? Another thing to think about, and actually when I did this when I was in UP, I think it was y4it, but another conference too when I was in engineering, is really write down what I wanted to do 5, 10 years from now, and I said that maybe in the future I'll go to grad school. I wanted to have a vacation. I didn't have a lot of money at the time, but I just had this wrote down goals of what I wanted to do. I never wrote down that I wanted to be a startup founder. That was never in my horizon. But I knew I wanted to be a good engineer. I wanted to become an astronaut or an aerospace engineer. So I definitely tried to pursue it, even if it was difficult. Right? I ended up doing it, which is great. Right? So for you, you just have to think about that. A lot of times, kunyari, master's degree, like a lot of times, you might not think of it for yourself, but if you really want it, write it down, and it might actually happen, right? So for me, I wanted to do that. I said at some point I wanted to get my master's degree, and I ended up getting it, right? Um, Another thing to think about, my next challenge for you is, um, look at your career, not just a job, but actually a career, right? Because especially now in the age of the internet, people can have a full time job, they can have a side jobs, make money on investments. Some of you might be kanina the crypto guy. Parang baka some of you are exploring, right? Should I invest in all these things, right? Some of you might think that maybe I should invest in real estate or invest in school or my own for education, right? And yeah, I think actually the thought process here is, how do you build a career that is not just one dimensional but multi-dimensional because it's the internet reach, right? So for example, for me, again, I'm building Plantina, but because my passion is in teaching, I'm also a adjunct professor at ALM, right, doing digital and transformation and innovation. So I just enjoy that, and when I see some of my executive students talking about innovation, that just excites me, right? So for you, you have to think of what those career levers are, and again, having one job or one job alone is also okay, but a lot of people are doing side hustles, side gig, sideline, right, whatever you call it. This is actually another particular important thing, and something that I really value during the pandemic is, especially when you're building a startup or doing something hard, especially like IT, engineering, computer science, it's really hard. And I always got envious with my friends in UP na nasa BA, right? Like nasa business ad, econ, etc. Like I always thought that I was so envious of them because they had a little bit more time to go to socials, etc. Right? So, um, yeah, but I realized that the biggest thing really for you is not to look out, but actually look in and also find out like who are the people around you that you can trust, that you can talk about your own challenges with money, with life, with your dreams. No one's gonna crush your dreams, all these things, right? Because if you want to be like the best engineer or IT person, be around people that will help you get to that level, right? So I think that's the big thing, and take out the people that are trying to put you down because it's hard, no? Hirap na talaga. Like in the end, it's the technology track is the hardest track, I think, right? That most people have to go through, and very few people understand it. So you have to at least have a group of people that you trust that you can talk, technology, money, life with, right, on a regular basis. This is kind of my second to the last slide. We can just do like different questions here. Is yeah, I mean, um, yeah, life is really optimizing about happiness, right? Money, careers, right? Your path, starting a company, etc. Like all these things. But I guess for you, what you really want is how do you achieve your goals, your dreams, regardless of what that is, and just optimize for that, and no one else should take that away from you, right? So yeah, I think that's really my kind of startup journey here. On really thinking about first again, look inside of you. Where is your vision? 5, 10, 15 years from now? How do you look inside and like understanding yourself? What does success mean to you? Right? And then at some point, maybe at some point someone will ask you, what is your dream? And if I gave you the money, what would you do, right, with that money to achieve your dream? And I think that's really how we should all think, because when luck really happens, right? When preparation and opportunity collides, right? So we always want to have luck in our side. And I'm really hoping that all of you now, right, the thousands of you listening, will build your own amazing technology careers built on preparation and opportunity. So yeah, that's it. And yeah, if ever you want to check out Plantina app, more than 200,000 people downloaded us already. Just in the Google App Store though, we have iOS maybe in a few months. But yeah, feel free to do buy now pay later to Plantina. But thank you again for the opportunity here.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Earl, for sharing your Plantina journey. Alright, okay. So guys, we are now open for any questions or speaker or Earl. Okay, meron dito nag-raise ng hand. Open. Guys, you please send in your questions and your thoughts about the topic of our speaker, about Earth's talk. Okay, please feel free. Ayan, may nagtanong na. Earl, sabi dito by, let me check, by Eusebio. Is it Eusebio Junior Columbino? Personally, sir, what are your best practices that got you to where you are now? Seb from y4it Binalonan.
Yeah. No, thank you for that question. No. Yeah, ako kasi when I was um, a student, right? When I was in UP in engineering, um, I had I wrote down actually a list, right, of basically things I wanted to do before I turned 30, right? So it was like impossible things, right? Sabi ko I want to graduate, with honors. I wanted to get masters. Ay sabi ko yung nakita ko yung mga fancy cars, sabi ko one day ba gusto ko rin ng magandang kotse, di ba? Gusto ko mag-travel. I really had like a list that siguro every few months, I look at the same list. It's like, kailan ba kaya itong list na to? But all throughout from 18 to 30, I always kept looking at it. And yeah, I mean, pati doon, like, I wanted to marry my high school crush, or all these things. No, it's both love and all these things. And at some point, it ends up working because you're so focused on it, diba? Um, and obviously, if you don't get it, it's fine. But at least you're pointing towards that direction. So I made a lot of career decisions because of those. How do I check off this bucket list I had of things I wanted to do before 30? And very few of my friends, my classmates, even in high school and college, knew what they wanted to do when they turned 30, right? Or when they were 25 or 22 or 21. But that's why I'm encouraging everyone here listening, right? The thousand something is even write down like what are the three things that even if it sounds crazy, um, you write something down because you never know what could happen, right? So that's like what really helped me in my career, and that's why when someone like MVP asked me, "What do you want to do in life?" It was easy to talk to him, right?
Wow, thank you for that tip. Thank you. So you have a bucket list, no? Tapos sabi natin nila, di ba, Earl, parang be specific with your goals para alam mo paano siya abutin.
Yeah, yun nga. I mean, I really said na I wanted, ano yung mga places I wanted to go vacation with, sabi ko, I want to go to Spain, Czech Republic, Mexico. I don't know, nakita ko lang sa TV. So, sabi ko, one day,
question, yun dun ba sa love life, yung nakalagay about love life, nag-manifest, nangyari?
Yeah, so,
wow.
Yeah, it's actually funny. So, I had this crush in high school. It was my prom date, pero sorry, she went kasi to Ateneo and I went to UP. So, UP Engineering. So, the worlds collide siyempre, wala na. But after a few years, parang nag-reconnect ulit kami. Then, obviously, we got married after. So, yeah. So, I was very specific with my school. But it's obviously not for everybody, right? Like, this is like something that I never knew was gonna happen. So.
Alright, okay. Earl, may gusto mag-send sa atin ng message of thought from Wendell Villapania. Such a passionate man, Sir Earl. Thanks for the tips and some hacks on how to deal with our goals and dreams. Good afternoon, everyone from Pampanga State Agricultural University. Okay, ito Earl from Jesserbert Yambon. Jesserbert Yambon. Okay. What is your advice? Moving. What is your advice for the students who have low confidence with this profession, BSCS? Where do we start, or what we should seek to be as successful as moving as you are? Jeffrey Yambon, Holy Cross College.
Yeah, I'll tell you something, kunyari even in Filipina, one of our top engineers is from University of Baguio, right? Actually, our best engineer, our director of engineering. And I've seen also people from all over the world from different backgrounds. And what is the difference between someone who is from a top school and not a top school in the field of technology is actually nothing, right? Because technology levels the playing field, right? Because it's really your output, right? So kunyari, the demand now is so high for computer science, right? To build web apps, mobile apps, right? Data structures, etc. Like there's so much demand in the world that, you know, sabi ko nga, technology careers is the ultimate meritocracy. Meritocracy is anybody could have a chance, no? To become like the world's best if you just put your time into practicing, into building things, right? Like building apps, doing things, doing projects. That's how you get good, right? And so, what's low confidence? So low confidence happens because if you're just not sure if you're doing it at the right, the right quality, right? But in the end, you just have to start small, start more projects. Someone's going to give you feedback, do it again over and over and over again, get certifications, do trainings, right? Like it's even if you just go to like YouTube, right? There's so many trainings you can see. There's Coursera, right? Like it's an amazing world now. Like I wish when I was in when I graduated in the early 2000s, right? I was in UP 1999 as a student. Um, all of these things weren't available, right? So the only path towards becoming an engineer is to actually go through engineering school, right? But now, like, there's so much, resources for you to practice, to get projects, to do stuff, right? Like even building like your town mobile app, that's cool, right? So your school's mobile app just for fun, or meron nga nag-pitch sa akin before, the Tambay app, an app lang na pang tambay lang, right? Like do something like that and then practice. Some point you're going to be the best in the world, right? So I'm excited for all of you again because this is like IT, technology, computer science, engineering are the hottest fields on